Hello, you guys. I guess I am on. It is me, Trina of Aloma Life Coaching. How are you guys doing tonight? It is 10 o'clock and it's time for Love After Dark. Got my pen, got my notes. I'm ready. I hope you guys are ready. For those of you who are watching on the replay, let me know you came in, okay? Let me know you came in. I'm trying to give everybody a couple of minutes to start popping on so we can get this thing started. This should not take super long. This should be right inside of our time frame, of our 45 minute time frame. Hey Ramona, how you doing, lady? My first time seeing you here, I think, popping on for this one. I think for lives. Anyway, for those of you who do not know who I am Trina Aloma of Aloma Life Coaching. I am your intuitive love coach. I am the coach for the man and woman who are ready to regain trust in themselves and trust in others to position them for true love. Now, you guys already know true love, in my opinion, and I'm pretty sure I'm right, begins with loving ourselves. So my focus is on self-love and relationships. And tonight's Love After Dark is going to be getting over a breakup. Like I said, I'm going to give a couple of minutes for folks to kind of pop in before I get started too much, because I wanted to make sure those people who needed that time to get their pens and their paper, they are ready to go. They're ready to go. So anyway, while we wait, how are you guys doing? How are you guys doing tonight? I absolutely love Thursday night simply because every Thursday night I know I'm either going to be working from home or I will be off the next day. So I love Thursday nights. And so anyway, as you come in, please say hey to me so I know you're here. I will speak as I see your name pop up, if it pops up. Sometimes they don't pop up, but of course I will speak. If you let me know you're here, I will acknowledge your presence here. I appreciate y'all staying up late with me. I can't tell who's here. I don't know what's going on. You know, hey, maybe everybody's asleep. I don't know, but I'm going to go ahead and get this party started. And like I said, if you watch on the replay, please let me know you were here on the replay and say hey to me. Hey, Katina, how you doing? Glad you popped in, lady. So anyway, tonight's topic is getting over a breakup. And the reason I asked you to bring a paper and a pen is because this is easier done. This is easier done when you can actually see instead of just saying. Hey, Nikki, how you doing, lady? Where you can actually see what you're thinking in the process that you're going through. So if you don't have a pen and paper, go ahead and grab one real quick. Because I have a couple of things I want you guys to jot down so you can kind of, you know, go through this process with me. And again, this is just a quick run through of the process you would take. And sometimes this don't just happen in 45 minutes, right? But anyway, we're going to try to get through it tonight. So anyway, how to get over a breakup. First of all, before we start, I want to say this. I always say every relationship is a lesson and every breakup is a promotion, because regardless of whatever the reason of you being inside of that relationship, it is for you to get something from it. And if a breakup happens, when a breakup happens, it's when we go back out there again, rarely do we date down. So consider it a promotion. So every breakup is a promotion. Every relationship is a lesson. So we're going to get started. Oops, as I got excited. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, getting over a breakup. We all know that saying getting over a breakup is easier said than done. So instead of getting over a breakup, we're going to say moving beyond a breakup, because sometimes it takes a lot longer to get over it. You know, I don't like that term because it makes it feel like it's forced in a sense. So we're going to talk about moving beyond a breakup. So this is how, well, you guys know my story for the most part, for those of you who've been around for a little bit. But for those of you who don't, I was married for 23 years. And when I divorced, because I got married at such a young age, well, 21, 22 years old, I didn't have a chance to experience all the things about dating, right? I didn't do online dating, speed dating, network. I didn't do any of that stuff before because it wasn't there, at least not officially there. So when I divorced, it was one of those things. I was like, I want to try everything. So I did speed dating, online dating, offline dating. Uh, I did, it was just like a kid in a candy store in a sense, a responsible kid in a candy store. I'll say that. Because like I said, I married really early. I didn't have opportunity to do that. And through that time frame, I met people and I broke up with people, and it's just it's life. What happens when you go through a relationship. What I can remember is my friend asking me, "How do you go through?" Hey Sharon, how you doing? I can remember my friend asking me, "How do you get over it so quickly?" Right? Because I'm telling y'all, I thought I had V1 a couple of times. And then it was like, how do you get over it? And it was funny because I had to think about that, because I watched my friends kind of mourn forever, right? And I'm just like, why? And I understand everybody have their processes and it takes the time that it takes. But I had to ask myself, why was it easy for me to get over it, right? Or over them. And the thing is I think this is the process that I use, and I find that this is the process that works, at least for me. And I pray that it can be of some help to any of you who are experiencing this process at the time. So basically what I would do is, and this is what I would say to a client who was here with me. So you guys are getting this information. So this is information. That's why I told you to get your pencil and paper. So basically what happens is when it's hard to get over a breakup, when we're saying it's hard to get over a breakup, it's because we're thinking about all those good things, right? So I asked them to write a list of all those good things that they say this person was, right? Like he was so good to me. He opened doors. He was, he called me. He didn't fight me. And my thought is that being good, or is that being normal, right? So I'm like, outside of the common courtesies, what was really special? Hey, Sharon's daughter, how you doing? Outside of the common courtesies that you were expecting every human being, what was it that you loved about this individual? So I asked you to write that down. If any of you are experiencing a breakup and trying to figure out how to get through it and how to get over it and everything else, maybe this will help. So maybe you can go ahead and you can write down those things that you say you love about this individual. Now, normally when a person tells me about all the good things, like I said, they tell me about common courtesies. I want you to tell me about the good things, like what, opening doors for people to me is common courtesy. Listening to my problems without judgment is one of those things that I would consider to be one of those things you would write down. So write down the good things that you felt about that individual, okay? And then what it is when you write them down, kind of recall how those feelings made you feel, right? Usually when we think about that, we think about how we think they should feel. And in reality, most of the things that we're writing down are onesie twosies. It's not like a consistent behavior in a person. So when you go through that process of saying, okay, he was whatever the good thing, or she was whatever the thing is that you loved about him, what was the actions that they put behind that? Like, recall the things that they did that made that a fact. So if they were, for example, okay, good, I'm glad she's good. Sharon, is she a older daughter, or is she a young lady? How old is your daughter? So when you write the good things out, write down the things that they actually did that proved that made that a fact. And if you can't get through it as, quicker than I'm talking, because I know sometimes it takes a minute to think of, get your thoughts together and to put everything down on paper. But just remember, or just write it down, what were the things that I loved about him or her, and what are the, list a couple of things that proved that as a fact. So if you say they were a good provider, list the things that person did that showed that they were a provider, okay? That's step number 1. Step number 2, we're going to create a second list. And I want you to write down the things that wasn't so good. Was he disrespectful? Did he cheat? Did he leave you? Did he ghost? Did he ghost you without any type of explanation? Did he, she's 13. Okay. Teenager. All right. So she's probably out of school now, huh? Getting ready to start summer vacation. So when you write the things that they did that wasn't so great, like I said, if they ghost you without any communication, if they disrespected you, if there was infidelity, if they weren't honest, if they betrayed you, whatever it was that they did that was not so good, write those things down next on your list, and then write the things that made those facts. So if you say he was dishonest, write down the things that he did that was, dishonest. I'm not going to ask you to share because this is very personal. To me, this is the tricky thing about being a relationship coach and self-love coach. When we talk about our personal inner selves and we talk about the relationships that we have, it's really hard to be in a space where we can share everything and feel comfortable. Now, I try to make my group where it's as comfortable as possible, where we can actually talk and share different things. But I understand it doesn't matter sometimes. Some things are just, it's just what it is. Some things are a little bit more private. I'll put it like that. So I'm not going to ask you to share it in here unless you want to share your list with us here. Okay? And so when you're doing that, once you wrote that list down of the things that wasn't so good and the things that made that fact, write down how did each one of those sets of things make you feel. How did it make you feel? And this is a good one for replay as well, because then you can stop it and write it and then go and stop and go. So for those of you who are on the replay, this is probably a good deal for a replay for this one. Okay, so when you finish the list, I want you to compare the list, right? And because sometimes we can write this whole big list, and I'm going to tell y'all this story. When I was married, just before I started really seriously considering filing for divorce, I did this exact thing. I wrote this list. I even drew a scale because I wanted to weigh, what it was that I was considering giving up, right? And I can remember drawing this scale where this side held the good things and this side held the not so good things, right? And this is what I mean by writing down how they feel and the implications and the things that showed that they were fact. So on this good side, right, I had all of these good things. I had, we were, really set when it came down to finances. We had a beautiful home. We were able to take trips, and all those good, nice things. I had it listed. It was like a lot of things, on that side here. And then on the side where the not so good things that I had to compare it with, it was only one or two things. And I think on my personal scale for my personal life, it was infidelity. And of course, infidelity includes lying and everything else. So it was infidelity. So I have infidelity here, and I have all of this stuff on this side, right? I have, like I said, beautiful home, travel, what I wanted, basically what I wanted. And even though this side was loaded with all the good stuff, this stuff that was on the not so good stuff was still heavier. That's why I say you weigh it, because even though we have a list of 1,000 things, if this side right here, it may be one thing. It may have been infidelity, but inside of infidelity there lies betrayal, there lies lying. It means that there is a lack of self-esteem. It's a killing of your self-esteem. Your self-confidence goes down. So that weight was a lot heavier than even all this stuff over here to me. And that's what tilted the scale to say, okay, this is where my good is no longer outweighing my bad, right? So that's why I say weigh the good and the bad. So when you're going through these breakups and you start seeing that, you know what? All of this good stuff may have been there, but this thing right here encompasses so much more than just that word. It encompasses so much more. It affects me so many different ways, or whatever it may be. It may affect your kids. It may affect your, your family. it can be, the effect can be so much heavier, even if it's just one thing here. That's why I say weigh it. Weigh and see what it is. Now, when you do that weigh and you realize that the negative outweigh the positive, let me do the first one first. If you see the positive outweigh the negative and he's still gone or she's still gone, then you have to go back to the beginning of what I said. Every relationship is a lesson and every breakup is a promotion. And what that means is, if you're saying that the weight of everything, the good was outweighing the bad, then there is a lesson inside of that relationship for you that you have to get, that you have to recognize. So if the good outweigh the bad, this is part of the whole cycle of your growth. And you have to look at it as it's a growth, because every relationship is going to teach you something, or it should teach you something, or you can find yourself back in the same situation again. However, when you do that weighing and the bad outweigh the good, and you're still thinking, I want to be there, you have to ask yourself a couple of questions. And the thing is, why do you feel as if you don't deserve better? Why do you feel like that person is more important to you? Because when, like I said, when you're doing the weighing in the bad outweighing the good, you have to ask yourself, why do you want to be in that situation? Now, you may say, well, I grew to love him, right? But when you weigh the things that he did, you have to ask yourself, were you really liking him or loving him? Or were you loving that picture in your head that you had created of what you could be or what you wanted it to be? Were you looking at those first 3 months that I talk about, that is used to kind of set the pace on something? And like I said, it's something that's sometimes consciously done. I was told by an individual they do this purposely. They purposely make the first 3 months beautiful, like something that, you know, a woman would talk about to her friends, like, you know, over lunch, and make it beautiful for the first 3 months. After the first 3 months, they can kind of start, you know, kind of laying off of it, simply because of the fact the way our mind is set up. We're going to always recall the good parts. We're going to always recall that good time, that 3 months, and we will spend months, years, decades trying to rebuild what we thought we had in the first 3 months, not realizing that that was not who that person was. So when you think about you're weighing everything and you're saying, okay, this fantasy that I had about what we were or what we could have. When you think about that fantasy, you automatically get certain feelings and certain emotions behind it. One day I'm going to do the self-coaching method. I think I've talked about it before by Castillo. I can't remember her first name right now, but she has a self-coaching method that is amazing, and I love it because I haven't found a flaw in that yet. But anyway, when we get those feelings behind certain things, we have to kind of, you know, when we start feeling those emotions on the fantasy that we created, we have convinced ourselves that it exists, right? We have felt the feelings. And inside of energy work, it does exist. Because if you can dream it, you can make it happen. If you can get when you feel those emotions, you have told your body and your mind that this action is possible. The problem that we have is disassociating that action and that fantasy with that individual, right? So that's a part of it. You have to disassociate your fantasy from that individual. When you are able to do that, you'll realize that what you are mourning is not that person. You're mourning that feeling, that fantasy that you created surrounding that person, right? So that is so that is the whole thing about making sure you've waited and you're seeing what's going on and you actually see the reality of it all. Because if it's just a fantasy that you're mourning, what you have to understand is once you realize that it can exist, and it can exist, that it's just not that individual that you have to exist with. That there's a possibility of that the person who can actually fit into this fantasy, whose list isn't so outweighed with negative stuff, that you can actually share happiness with. So you just, you got that fantasy in your head, and I thought we would be able to have kids, we would be able to travel, and we'll have this wonderful life together. That is totally possible, except you don't want it with this person that was disrespectful, that cost you your self-esteem, that cost you your self-confidence. And that is the way I feel like I got over a lot of the relationships that I were in easily, because I realized that I was mourning the fantasy that I had created in my head about what I wanted it to be, right? Instead of who I was actually dealing with. Have you ever been with someone? Okay, you ever been with someone, and when you break up and you look back years later and you're like, what in the heck was I thinking about? What in the heck, did I want to hold on to that? And it's because that fantasy was so real in your head that you had placed it with that person. And in reality, that person is just who that person is. Now, I'm not here to blame anybody inside of a relationship that ends. Because I don't know what the circumstances are. But what I can say, each one of us are on our individual journeys, and we're learning things individually. So that person may not even been in the space to even be in a relationship. However, when that breakup happens, that doesn't stop your heart from hurting. That doesn't stop you wanting to contact him. That doesn't stop you wanting to stalk his Facebook page. That doesn't stop you from accessing things that you had the password to sneakily from before. It doesn't stop you from checking out every move he's making on Instagram. Trying to figure out if he's, going between blocking and unblocking, blocking and unblocking, blocking him just to check to see if he called when you unblocked him. It doesn't stop all that stuff. So even when you have weighed that, we have to deal with then our habit. And that habit of whatever it is that you did that made you feel good with him. So while you were with him, there was a habit of having someone to talk to, having someone to go to the premiere of movies with, having someone to share thoughts and whatever with. And these are habits that you had with this person. Now, they say habits, they say 21 days or something, or 22 days to break a habit. In reality, from what my research shows, it can take from 18 days to 254 days to break a habit. And what you have to do is simply break the habit of that person being in that space. Now, I'm going to tell you this. If a habit was easy, I don't think they'll call it breaking a habit, right? So this is the part that makes it hard as well. Once you realize, I know this person isn't for me. I know he's not, but you still find yourself calling. You still find yourself texting. You still find yourself trying to figure out what they doing and why and when and how and everything else. It's because you have this habit. You have the habit of whatever it was that you did with that individual that made you feel better, made you feel good, or even made you feel bad, because habits are not always good things, right? So we have to go through this process of breaking the habit when you're going through a breakup and moving beyond a breakup. Now, we're all gonna, I don't think we'll be human, and I'm not even gonna admit that I have ever been so strong that I didn't do any of this, but we have to release these people. We don't have to let them know that we know that they know that we know anything, because when a person is behaving badly, they already know. They don't need us to tell them. We just need that thing for some reason. We feel like if we tell them, they can deny it to a point. And this is the real of it, because we're not really asking them to confirm it. We want them to deny it to a point that we believe it, so we won't have to go through this process. And even if it is to a point where saying, well, I know that you did this. The thing is, everybody knows. He knows, but everybody of importance knows. He knows, or she knows, and you know. There's no need to bring it to him. He's the one who did it. So it's no reason to tell him what he did and that you know he did what he did. It's just in our head that, in my opinion, we're trying to get a result out of something. It's like our last minute chance to please tell me something that make this not true, right? And rarely does that happen, because when a person behaves badly, they already know they're behaving badly, right? So we can get that need to tell. If we have to just say it and scream it loud, make a recording of it, or write it down, write it out, paint it out, whatever it is that you need to do. Journal about it to get it out of your system if you have to get it out of your system. Also, those social media pages, Instagram, we create, look, I'm going to tell y'all, go through the process of trying to hack into people's account, trying to find phone numbers and calling people up, acting all kinds of ways, stalking what they doing on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, or whatever social media outlet or platform that's used, trying to see what they're doing, because I can't tell you why. It's some type of satisfaction. Sometimes that comes with when we continue to dig, especially when it goes on for months and months. My belief is that we get to a point where we rather feel the pain than feel nothing. You rather feel the pain than feel nothing. So we go through this process, we're going to keep, I got to do something. Otherwise, I got to do something, right? If I don't keep digging, then I got to do something. And that something is usually moving on. And that's where it gets hard at, right? That's the whole thing behind it. But I'm going to tell you, if you guys have ever, for those of you who are mommies and who had people who were mommies, when you give birth, when you give birth vaginally, the doctors, they do the cut, right? And the cut is basically to prevent you from tearing if the baby seems like it's going to be too big, or you're not contracted enough. And they cut you because a clean cut is much easier to heal than a ragged tear, right? So this is the part where it comes into the relationships where it's going to hurt, but it's going to heal so much nicer and so much cleaner. Cut off the contact from social media. If you're going to block them, right? And don't block them to unblock them to see if they block, and to let them know that I know you know that I'm blocking you. Don't do that. Don't call. Don't do. If you're trying to get over this, if you're trying to get over a breakup and move forward, you got to cut the communication. You got to go no contact. You have to. And as hard as it seems, I told you about that 18 to 254 days to break a habit. You never know when your day is. Your day can be 23. You're on day 22 and you call. Now you got to start back over again to break that habit. And then when you do end up breaking that, when you do end up disrupting the break, there's a feeling that comes with that. So you've gone through all of these stories in our head. And I know women, we have a tendency to really make up these stories and scenarios about how things are going to go, how a conversation is going to go, because surely he missed me the way I miss him, right? We have this whole thing in our head about what we think it's going to be. And then we make this phone call, another woman answer. He basically tell you he's still not interested. It turns to, God forbid, something much worse as a booty call. And you go through that whole process of, demeaning yourself. Hey, Regina, how you doing? You go through this whole process of demeaning yourself because you're expecting something different. You're expecting something different. And then you have to start back over again. I know, like I said, a habit is hard to break. A habit is hard to break. And a habit is not a bad thing always. But in this case, you have to go through the process. If you can get it in your head, if according to research, they're saying 18 to 254 days, 18 days, you can do 18 days. Even if you can't do it, whenever you feel like you're gonna do something that you shouldn't do, journal about it, pray about it, meditate, whatever your method of getting through it is. Whatever your method is, but whatever you do, you have to get through it. Because like I said, you can get to day 19 and your breakthrough may be day 20. However, if you resort back to what it is, back to that habit, then you're having to start back over again. And according to research, once you break the habit, it's very doubtful you'll come back to it. This is the case when we look back and we're talking, how in the world did I think he was my everything? Sometimes it can gross you out when you think about, I wasted all this time. I wasted my gas following this dude. I wasted my time trying to figure out where he was. I worried myself. I lost hair. I lost weight. I gained weight. Hey, Regina. I don't know. Hey, Regina. You know, and I went through all of this stuff, and he's moved on, and I'm still standing still. And that leads me to my last point for here tonight. When it comes to moving on, when we don't move, we not only hurt ourselves, but we hurt the person that we're moving away from. And I've always told, hey, Maisha, how you doing? You coming in on the tail end, lady? I always say, when it comes down to moving on, we always say, well, what if I give up too soon? Now, I'm going to tell you, if you're fighting by yourself inside of a relationship, you're not fighting with your partner, you're fighting against each other. So when it comes down to moving on, the thing is this. If you don't move, you are giving them the impression that where they are is fine because they can do anything they want and they will still have a person sitting there. So if you can't move on for yourself, move on knowing that if you don't, not only are you making your own self stagnant, you're also stagnant the growth of the person that you're moving from. And the thing is, y'all, I'm going to tell you, we always say, what if we're doing it too fast? I'm going to tell you the way things are set up, the way the universe is set up. Now, a lot of people, when I say universe, I'm not discounting God. I believe God created all of this stuff. And I think just like any perfect program, there has to be some type of system in place, and I think the universe is God's system. That's how I look at it. That's how I describe it. So the way the universe is set up, what is ours, right? What is going to be ours is ours. And it doesn't matter whether we go left or whether we go right. If it's ours, it's going to come with us. So when it comes time to move and to keep moving, if that person is yours, they're going to catch up. But if you don't move, you're going to keep the same exact thing of where you are. There will be no growth. There will be no growth for either one of you. In fact, there will be a taken away because, like I said, self-esteem and self-confidence is when that start to lack, sometimes you don't even have the strength to move forward. But just knowing that, one step, 2 steps, 3 steps, it's going to pull all of that stuff. It's going to pull it all back because I'm telling you guys, if he or if she is meant to be in your life, they will catch up. If you want the same mess, stay right there. That's what you're going to get, the same mess. If you want growth, you move. Because even if they don't catch up, even if they're not supposed to be with you, what is yours is along your pathway and you have to keep moving. And that's another thing when I go back to that front statement that I said, every relationship is a lesson. That person could simply be your lesson to something really beautiful further down the road. But how are you going to get to it if you're still lingering? How are you going to get to it if you've made these lists, the list that I told you guys to write in the beginning. Look at those lists and understand. And I'm going to tell you, when you get to a point where you've made a list and you understand that, this person did me wrong, but I still love him and I still want to be with him. I'm not saying you're going to stop loving a person, just because you break up with and you move on, which is why I changed getting over a breakup to moving beyond a breakup. I'm not saying you're going to stop loving them, but what I'm telling you, you got to love yourself more. You got to love yourself more because when you don't, this is the kind of stuff you end up in. You end up in that stuff that takes away your self-esteem and self-confidence. It takes away your spirit, honestly. I'm telling you, there's no way you can love from an overflow if you're not loving yourself fully. And if you're loving yourself fully, there's no way in the world you're going to let somebody come in and love you less. There's no way. No way in the world you're going to allow that to happen. So, with all of that, does anybody have any questions, any type of comments, any type of concerns? It can be, if you want to share your personal story, just say I do, and I would definitely place you up here on screen. We can talk about it. Or if you feel like you want to type it in, and I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to get that all in. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, and we can address it right here, right now, and talk about it. A lot of times, to continue my thought, when we continue to say we want to be with somebody who hurt us, This is when we have to do the work. This is when we have to do the work and realize there's something that happened somewhere down the road that made you believe that you are not worthy. And this is where the real work come in. I'm always saying anytime there's a restriction in your life, that's because there's a healing that's needed somewhere. And it's always something. I can promise you, there's always something that's happened before that you got this feeling that made you feel a certain way, and it made you think a certain way. And when you think that certain way, you start making decisions according to that thought, right? So there's always something that's happened that make you feel like, you know what, I don't deserve anything better, because something happened that put that in your head. It could have been something that was purposely said, something that was inadvertently said, but you got a message from somewhere. You got a feeling from somewhere that said, I'm not deserving of this, or I'm not worthy of this. Or it could be something as simple as, I am supposed to take care of everybody. I'm telling you, it seems like it is so simple, but every single thing, some message you receive that you respond on, some message that you receive that you make your decisions on today. You could have been 4, you could have been 8. Something happened that changed your mind around something, changed your thoughts around it, and therefore you're making those same exact decisions from the mind of an 8-year-old, as a 30-year-old, as a 40-year-old, as a 50-year-old. This is what I'm telling y'all right now. There's always that, Maisha says, I was like that with my ex-husband. I'm so glad I came to my senses. I was really gone. Yeah. I'm telling you, when you're in that space, it's hard to see it. It's hard to see it because half of the time, and this is the truth, half of the time when we feel like we want to be with somebody, we ain't going to look at it, whether it's there in our face or not. We just not going to look at it. We're going to make up every excuse in the book and say this is not true. We're going to make up, we're going to come up with these scenarios in our head to make it feel right. I can remember speaking with a girlfriend of mine at one point, and she was wondering why this guy wasn't calling her back. And some of you guys may have heard this story before. And she was saying every excuse in the book. And this is not confidential information, so I'm not telling nobody's business. This was a few years ago. She was making up every excuse in the book. Oh, maybe he got so busy on his job and he don't have time to call me. Or maybe he got, there was something that happened where, I'm telling you these far-fetched scenarios, but we have a tendency of making up these scenarios. And my question to her was, okay, put yourself in that position. What would you have to be feeling that if a person is calling you, texting you, emailing you, and you don't respond, what do you feel about that person if you were in their shoes? And her response was, I don't care about them. And she had to actually see that, because there is no excuse. I don't care if you, the President of the United States, you have time to tweet. Y'all already know that. Just from what we got going on now. They find time to tweet at any point. Ain't nobody that busy. If a man want to be with you, or if your mate want to be with you, they will find time to be with you. When we start making up these excuses, that's when we start, digging into our own self, and we start, causing harm ourselves, because this person can just not respond, and we start, coming up with all these excuses, and we start feeling some type of way. And that is an incident that a year down the road, 2 years down the road, when this is all over with this situation over here is all over with, you can be with this perfectly good guy or good woman, and you are going to make a decision based on this thing right over here. And that's the way we operate. We make decisions based on the experiences that we've had in the past. But when we can go back and we can confront those experiences and see it for what it was, see it for what it is, then we can make healthier decisions. This is why I say, when you get to a point of true self-love, when you get to a point of where you can reevaluate all that stuff, and my 4R healing system, when you can recall and you can release, you can rewrite, and you can renew. That is my 4R system. When we're able to do that, then we're able to see it for what it is. We're able to see it for what it is. Therefore, we're able to make better decisions. And when we're making these decisions, we're making it out of love. And we know we're not going to just bring anything. We're not going to just settle for anything in our lives. So these breakup things that I was telling you about, all of these steps are here to help you see that what you are usually mourning when it comes to a breakup is not an individual. You're mourning a fantasy that you made up in your head, that there's no facts to substantiate it. That's why I say when you make this list of all those good things that you love, don't just make a list of all the good things that you say he was. List out a couple of things that actually prove that it's fact. You're going to find it a little hard sometimes because it's like he said the right words, but did he ever do it? Right? And that's what we have in our head for this is mine, this is my one. But he hasn't proven anything. He's only said the words. And we've built our fantasy off of those words and not out of action. That's why I asked you to write those two lists down and then compare them. And when you compare them, you do the weight like I explained it through. So this is, I believe, the best healthy way to not just get over a breakup, but to move beyond a breakup, where you realize that every action is an action for a reason. Every relationship is a lesson. Every relationship is a lesson. And every breakup is a promotion. When you look at it like that, when you break up with someone who you know is not yours after you've done your comparison, when you break up with that person, you should feel some excitement. Because you know if I thought it's a possibility. And me lingering in this is just keeping me away from that thought. Right? Okay. So, I hope you guys got something from this. I do want to bring up before my last 3 minutes. You guys know that I am a love coach, and I do offer these services for those. You know, sometimes it's easy to say. It's easy. We can get the instructions, we can get the equipment, but sometimes we need a person to kind of push us through it. That's what I'm here for. Calendly.com/book Trina. The link is above. And I also want to let you guys know that I have sent out the pre-sale for the Renew and Release, for the Release and Renew, our all-inclusive retreat for next spring. That has been sent out. I even included it inside the group because I want you guys to have an opportunity at, well, I gave it to the pre-sale folks first. And because there's a limited amount of tickets, I want you guys to have an opportunity as well to take advantage of that. So if you haven't seen the pre-sale preview, it's just a preview of everything that's happening with the retreat. It includes the cost of the pre-sale rate. And it tells you what's going to go on with it, what, you know, what it's about and everything. It's a preview. Basically, that's what it's a preview of the retreat. It tells you everything that's going on. If you're interested, simply inbox me. I'm in, and I will make sure you will be one of the first ones to get the link when it comes out June 15th. Now, the pre-sale that's being offered is a special rate for the retreat, and there is a payment plan if you need a payment plan that's available as well. But the sale starts June 15th, and when those pre-sale tickets are sold, we're going to go to the regular tickets, the general admission tickets, and we're going to sell those until the time for for cutoff. So I wanted to give you guys an opportunity for the pre-sale, especially since you're inside the group. I know some of you actually got on the list and you got the first round. You got the first round. And so, you know, when you respond in that, you will be the first round of link giving to reserve your space. And then whatever is left, I take the reservation from the groups that I've placed the preview in. And the last thing I have to say, y'all, for you guys who are in the area, in the DMV area, my ABC, which is the Loma Brunch and Chat, will be happening July 7th. It's the first Sunday of each month. I'm trying something new here because I believe that sometimes it's about fellowship. It's about just getting together and enjoying each other, having a conversation, and actually having a conversation around things in person, not just over the camera, you know, where we actually get a topic and we can talk about it and we can share, eat, and hit the road, Jack, right? So anyway, that is that. I don't see any more questions. I don't see any more questions or concerns or any comments. So I am going to go ahead and call this a night. You guys enjoy your weekend. I will be here sometime tomorrow, I'm sure, popping in with something. But until then, you guys take care of yourself. take care of each other because we are all connected. And I would definitely see you guys on the other side. Good night.